Work health and safety. Presentation created for the class of Industrial Technology class of 2021, made by the Year 11 class while they were in virtual isolation. Work health and safety relates to businesses implementing procedures and enforcing policies for their employees. They do this to protect human resources. In general, work health and safety procedures are put in place in order to protect workers from foreseeable and unforeseeable risks. And since each workplace is unique, WHS inspections are required to identify and eliminate risks. So how do we identify and reduce risks? Okay. When considering a risk in a workplace or on a set, you need to consider a risk rating table like the one you see here. Any actions taken must reduce the likelihood of a risk occurring. Any risk that is determined to be undesirable or greater, that is to say in the yellow, orange or red range on this scale, even after remediation, should be avoided. So if you look on the X and Y axes, there's the severity from catastrophic to negligible and the likelihood from improbable to frequent. Something that is catastrophic and frequent should never be undertaken. Something that is improbable to happen and has negligible effect is not a problem. And so when you see the acceptable range is in the 4, 5 and 6 values, or the desirable range of 3, 1, 2 or 3 values, they're unlikely to occur and unlikely to have severe impact. Whereas if you have something that is both catastrophic and a frequently occurring event, it is likely to be a dangerous thing and therefore should be avoided. A wide variety of risks exist on a workplace or on set. Each workplace is unique, therefore a unique set of risks and solutions will need to be found. Some common risks in the workplace include electrical hazards, trip hazards, working from height, machine safety, lifting hazards, and fatigue, all of which present challenges to that workplace and require procedures to minimise or eliminate the risks as noted in the previous slide. So what is a hazard? A hazard can be described as an obstacle which impairs or maybe even halts the ability for a person to efficiently work. This is problematic for the quota of work being done in a workplace, as the hazard has a possibility of damaging equipment or injuring human resources which might be incapable of working as a result of this. An example of a hazard is a fire, which would damage the building and would also harm or possibly kill anyone unfortunate enough to be in the vicinity. To identify a hazard, it simply must affect the ability for an employee to work, causing harm or injury, or it might damage the workplace itself. It is crucial that hazards are identified quickly and dealt with quickly, as hazards have the potential to become more lethal over time. Once a hazard is identified, workers and managers can undergo training procedures to ensure safety, which can include the use of fire extinguishers, could include any form of training or first aid training or hazard reduction training to ensure that risk is reduced. It is essential that workplaces keep their human resources healthy and safe, which means they should be working efficiently as well. This means that workplaces must enforce health and safety policies and procedures and undergo common practices such as regular training and site inspections to ensure these conditions are kept up and upheld. As mentioned before, reducing hazards is done by workplace inspections through practice and procedure as set out in the workplace and mandated in law. By enforcing these procedures, workplaces can undergo their manufacturing without expecting any compromising situations to occur. Hazards will be reduced or avoided. An example of hazard reduction includes a proper care and safety around use of electrical appliances, such as removing cords so they don't form trip hazards, testing appliances so that they don't become electrical hazards, and so on. Work health and safety legislation is a set of rules or procedures mandated by the government which is designed to help prevent or minimise risk in the workplace. An example of legislation would include mandatory reporting to minimise risks if a workplace manager finds or a workplace worker finds any issues. A policy is given by a workplace to cover the general concept of how the company wants employees to act, and it must be followed. A practice relates to the act of doing something in a workplace in a particular way as bound by that workplace's work policy. So the workplace creates the policy, the staff in that workplace undertake that practice. A procedure is the act of doing something under given conditions, for example, a subsequent step-by-step methodology. For example, evacuation is a procedure. If a potential risk is not covered by legislation, it's best to notify the workplace manager as the risk has the ability to escalate and cause harm. If injury or death is caused by a potential workplace hazard, and is a result of poor WHS regulations, the workplace is likely to be found to be responsible. So WHS is everybody's responsibility. Workplaces must allow their workers to recognise and refer to a procedure during working hours or emergencies. This means workplaces have to introduce methods that can inform employees of any dangers or hazards they might experience. Mandatory signage and displays are practices to inform and best explain procedures necessary for efficient, safe work environments. By informing employees of common procedures and practice, it is easier to control the risk and minimise the potential damage if a workplace hazard occurs. An example of this are the green exit signs or the red fire signs. A procedure means to act under given conditions. This means prerequisites must be met and staff can know what to do step by step in the event of an emergency. Signage helps to inform workplaces of potential hazards and also give basic guides as to how to act in the event of an emergency. Signage is something that's used to warn people, obviously. No running, for example. This sign might warn workers not to run in an area based on what equipment is in the area, who is working in the area. A high voltage sign will warn workers of high electrical current. Cleaning in progress signs, just to ensure there's no trip hazards. There are lots of different signs everywhere. Workplaces will do their best to keep staff and employees safe. Hence, they will ensure employees follow step-by-step methodologies. There'll be training to ensure workers work according to the policy and procedure as set out by the company. Fire drills are common procedures. These drills are incorporated into workplaces to ensure workers know how to evacuate safely and properly and where to evacuate to. Evacuations are another workplace requirement to ensure that workers know where they're going when evacuations are required. Best practice in workplace have constant policies and procedure updates. Due to legal restrictions, workplaces must display signs which will inform their workers of hazards that may occur. This is done to take precautions and to reduce risks. You recall a few slides ago there was a risk reduction table. So signage will help to reduce risk. Evacuation routes, for example, will help to work staff know where they're going when evacuations occur. Ergonomic signage is a practice to ensure desk workers and all workers work in a healthy environment. Warnings or cautions are important. For example, trip hazards and electrical hazards, to ensure that workers know there is that potential risk involved. And when you look around any workplace, there's signage, safety signage everywhere to ensure that you are safe in your workplace. And it always works on the premise of reducing the risk to ensure that you are safe in your workplace. Thank you for listening.